Hello, friends. Welcome to In My Car on this back to work Monday on a beautiful sunny day in Montreal after our fifth snowstorm in the last 5 weeks. On Saturday, pummeled us with another, I don't know, dozen centimeters of snow. Here we are. It's 3 degrees. I'm in my beautiful Ash Gregoire Chambord Nissan Maxima SR trim line. That's right, baby. This is a V6 300 horsepower engine. You can drive this like I do. Just simply go to Ash Gregoire Chambord Nissan. It is Quebec's #1 rated Nissan dealership. Online 24 hours a day at chambordnissan.com. So, did the Montreal Canadiens disappoint you? Here we are on this back to work Monday in the aftermath of the Canadiens' most recent 4-game road trip coming to an end. It started with a win in San Jose on Tuesday of last week, and it ends with a 4-3 loss to Vegas yesterday, late afternoon, early evening, in a 4-3 final. And of course, sandwiched in between all of that was the Montreal Canadiens and the NHL trade deadline on Friday, March 3rd, that came and went with Ken Hughes not really doing anything other than a couple of minor moves. The Canadiens were part of a team that facilitated a trade. Nick Bonino was a Montreal Canadien for a hot minute. And a minor league depth move in defenseman Allard, basically going to the Laval Rocket, who, by the way, coincidentally, are starting to play a little bit better now as they've climbed out of the basement of their division in the American Hockey League. But unfortunately for them, as they push towards the playoffs, it doesn't look like they're going to have Justin Barron, because Justin Barron at the time was on injured reserve. And if the Montreal Canadiens wanted to get him there, they had to show the league that he was healthy. Unfortunately, anybody that's on IR is not eligible to come off IR until they're healthy. That's why Justin Barron is not on Laval's roster. And as a direct result, Raphael Harvey-Pinard and a couple of others will ultimately report to Laval for the American Hockey League playoffs, because breaking news, everybody, the Montreal Canadiens will not be a playoff participant in 2022-2023. The reality is just that. So let's start with the question. Are you disappointed the Montreal Canadiens didn't make a move? I'll be honest, in the sense that in our last post last week, I thought at least 3 guys were going to be gone. I thought Jonathan Drouin was going to get some attention. I thought Joel Edmondson was going to get some attention. And on a lesser degree, I suppose, Sean Monahan. Thought maybe a team would take a flyer if the trusted news that came to that general manager was that Monahan was good to go. Then I could see a team maybe taking a flyer. But at the end of all of this, the Montreal Canadiens are still with Joel Edmondson, not a rental player, so they're going to run this back one more year. Jonathan Drouin, Sean Monahan. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with both of those players. Could you see a scenario in which Sean Monahan is actually retained by the Montreal Canadiens and he's back, and the Canadiens attempt to see if this guy could stay healthy, and then they try to trade him a year from now? Same thing with Joel Edmondson, who at this point will be a year from today a rental player, with the concept of him perhaps being a little bit more attractive in the rental market. But a lot of things have to go right for the Montreal Canadiens. A lot of things have to go right for this team in order to hit on some of these players that they couldn't hit on this year. Like, are you going to trust that Sean Monahan's going to stay injury-free and that he's going to hit his numbers and that he's going to be attractive to multiple general managers to the point where we're talking about a potential bidding war here? Joel Edmondson and his nagging back injuries and everything else, is all of that going to get corrected with a full offseason, and that he's going to stay healthy for more than half a season next year and get the Canadiens substantial value? Like, how much do you value leadership as it relates to keeping or moving a player? Because you saw last week, I think Eric Engels wrote a piece on this or tweeted about it after the Canadiens got beat by the LA Kings, that Joel Edmondson was holding back tears when he was talking about the possibilities of leaving Montreal. Like, clearly he's fond of playing in this city, in this market, in front of these fans, and that his life in Montreal on and off the rink is apparently very strong, and that part of the reason why the Montreal Canadiens didn't move Joel Edmondson is leadership. I'd love to know how much of that was based off of his leadership, those intangibles, those assets a player possesses that you and I can't measure. We can measure a player's hustle. We can measure a player's offense or defensive abilities. But when it comes to leadership, like, how do you know? How do I know? I don't know. And, if you take Joel Edmondson out of this, Where are the Montreal Canadiens? Are the Canadiens worse? Because again, Joel Edmondson didn't play a lot of hockey for the Canadiens this season, and like a whole bunch of players, past and present, always tell us that when you're injured and injured for a prolonged period of time, you don't feel like you're part of the team. You don't want to be in anybody's way. You don't want to take a training table up for somebody that actually might need it, that's actually playing that night. You know what I mean? So there's a lot that goes into this, and I keep having in the back of my mind somewhere like Shea Weber and how what a leader he was. Wow. Everybody rallies around Weber. The Canadiens had bad teams. So that's what I'm saying. Yes, I do value leadership. I'm not telling you that leadership has very little value. I believe in leadership, but I don't think I want to hear, as this team is trying to rebuild with a new front office, putting it all together. I don't want to hear, well, we kept this guy because of leadership. That's what the previous regime did. The previous regime assessed a lot of their talent and a lot of their moves based on the makeup of a guy's character. Goals, assists, points, leadership, those are all valuable. But the Montreal Canadiens have a real chance to pivot. And I believe they will pivot. I'm not here to tell you that I no longer believe in Ken Hughes or Jeff Gordon, Hugo as they're nicknamed, because they didn't do anything that I wanted them to do on deadline day. If the move isn't there, the move isn't there. And yes, the Joel Edmondson, you can run it back. For example, if a team, let's say like the Boston Bruins, is calling you, Carolina is calling you for Joel Edmondson, are you going to give up Joel Edmondson for the Boston Bruins first round pick, Carolina's first round pick in July of 2023? Which is basically a second round selection. The Boston Bruins, Carolina Hurricanes pick, the Rangers pick, Vegas Golden Knights pick. We're not talking about the chances of players hitting as star talent. I'm not talking about face of a franchise. A franchise player is very different than a star player, in my opinion. So when we're talking about getting a star player, it's less than 5%. That's where we're at here. So the question I have for you, other than are you disappointed the Canadiens didn't do anything and did they disappoint you this weekend, is would you prefer to have Joel Edmondson for the rest of this year and for more than half of next year, if he stays healthy, obviously, and then you can look at his value and strongly consider obviously moving him because you're going to lose him for nothing as a pending unrestricted free agent next year? I think the answer is clearly keep Joel Edmondson, don't trade him, and try to get a better package, a better pick for the 2024 draft. Now, obviously everybody's goo-goo gaga over the 2023 draft and how potent it is, and how this impacts the Montreal Canadiens' future prospects, right? Because they lose to Vegas 4-3. Big game tonight. You got the Vancouver Canucks taking on Nashville at 10:30 tonight. Vancouver wins. They leapfrog the Montreal Canadiens. The Canadiens fall to the 6th worst record in hockey if Vancouver wins their game tonight. So we're all cheering for the Vancouver Canucks because what lies ahead for the Montreal Canadiens is quite the gauntlet of the who's who of the Eastern Conference this week. They've got games with the Carolina Hurricanes starting tomorrow. Jesperi Kotkaniemi, by the way, coming off a 1-goal, 4-assist performance for Carolina in their 6-0 win over Tampa Bay yesterday. By the way, the Tampa Bay Lightning have lost 5 in a row. They've given up 16 goals over their last 3 games combined, and they got cracked 6-0 by Jesperi Kotkaniemi, who went into his game with 25 points in 60 games. He left it with 5 points in 1 game. So Carolina's here on Tuesday. Then you've got the New York Rangers. Then you've got the New Jersey Devils. Then on Monday, so 1 week from today, it's the defending Stanley Cup champion Colorado Avalanche. That's the next 4 games for the Montreal Canadiens. How many points do y'all think the Canadiens are going to get in their next 4 games? The last time we spoke, ahead of the Canadiens game in San Jose, I told you I thought the Canadiens would get 1 point out of the possible 8 points that were up for grabs last week on their 4-game trip. They got 1 point. I'm here to tell you, I think the Montreal Canadiens pick up 0 points this week against the who's who of the Eastern Conference. That ends with a visit from the defending Stanley Cup champs. This is where we're at. this is where we're at for the Montreal Canadiens, who have, what, I think 8 road games to go. We got 5 more weeks of the NHL's regular season, 5 more weeks for the Montreal Canadiens, who end their year with the Boston Bruins. Game number 82 will be a loss to the Boston Bruins, who are on a quest for what? Like the Boston Bruins are rewriting the NHL history books, right? The fastest team to 100 points, eclipsing the 76 Montreal Canadiens, who I believe only played 80 games. Now we're an 82-game season. Obviously, there's no ties, so there's no points for overtime and all that shit. And as a direct result, I feel strongly about this. And I know there are a lot of Boston Bruins people watching, people listening, a lot of Boston Bruin fans in this market, that if they don't win the Stanley Cup, it's a major disappointment. And I know that the Bruins have a 1 in 16 chance at winning the Stanley Cup. But let me tell you something. There isn't a team in the league that gives this club competition. They steamroll everybody and have consistently throughout the season. So anything short of them winning a Stanley Cup would be a failure, a failed season for what they've accomplished. So it'd be fascinating to see. Look, they're going to win the President's Trophy as the best regular season team. The last team that won the President's Trophy that went on to win the Stanley Cup, you got to go back 10 years, was the Chicago Blackhawks. So it doesn't happen often. And the Boston Bruins are set up for what is a record-shattering individual team season. And it's unbelievable where they came. They fire the coach, where they are now. And they got to win the Stanley Cup, you guys. It's fascinating to see what's transpired, especially in the world of Formula One, with the Bahrain Grand Prix and Team Red Bull. Listen, let's call it now. The Formula One season, as far as who's going to win constructors and the Drivers' Championship, it's Red Bull all day, every day. Red Bull had, I think, about a 40-second lead over the first team that wasn't a Red Bull racer. Unfortunate again for congratulations again for somebody just sent me a message. I'll get to it in a second, but you distracted me. Was the fact that poor Charles Leclerc in Ferrari, this guy's car craps out mechanically again. But I got to tell you, the best part about the Bahrain Grand Prix from Formula One on Sunday was 41-year-old Fernando Alonso, who I thought 4 years ago was retiring. But man, oh man, he's racing for Aston Martin with his teammate Lance Stroll, the Canadian, whose dad, Lawrence, from Montreal, owns the team. And what a win it was for Team Montreal. Let's call it. Formula One, a guy from Montreal who obviously made his fortune selling Tommy Hilfiger and Michael Kors, made his fortune, and with that fortune, bought an F1 team, and his son races on it. And Lance Stroll, who I'm not the biggest fan of, I got to tell you, this kid had a gutsy performance, broken toe, broken wrists, still gets out there, races to a 6th-place finish in an Aston Martin car that is basically a Red Bull with Aston Martin stickers on it. And Fernando Alonso comes from the middle of the pack to finish on the podium in what was a fantastic, fantastic race and a great story and a great Montreal sports moment that here we are, our little corner of the world, And I really do mean that, our corner of the world, because it was about a year ago. Me and some pals, we went to Southern California for a kind of boys golf trip, right? We were kicking around Newport Beach and in Los Angeles for a while and playing golf, eating great food. And so I'm playing a course in Los Angeles, a nice private club. I'm playing there, and I'm like in the valley, right? So I'm in the fairway and I'm looking up at the hill, so to speak. And it's all these mega mansions. Like, you ever watch $1 Million Listing LA with Josh Flagg and Josh Altman and all those high-end Southern California realtors, and they all make, like, their commissions are $300,000-$400,000 because they're selling $30 million mansions in LA. And I'm in the middle of this valley in Los Angeles, and I'm surrounded by all these mansions. And I'm thinking to myself a few things here. I'm like, what do these people do? How do they get this money? I'm not convinced that it's legal. Like, unless you're like Tom Cruise or The Rock or something like that, you make $40 million a picture. Like, how do these people cheat in the stock market, getting insider trading tips and making like $1 billion? Like, how do these people get all this money? Where is it all? What are you doing with it? Like, how do you afford a $50 million house? Like, it's beyond my comprehension, right? So that was one thought I had. You know what the other thought I had? And I'm surrounded by these multi-million-dollar mansions, right? I'm like, do they even know Montreal? Does Montreal even exist here in this part of California, surrounded by billionaires and everything else? Like, the state of California, I believe, is like the fifth or seventh largest economy in the world. The state of California, and I'm surrounded by all this wealth, this obscene amount of wealth, and I kept looking around, like, we don't exist. Our little, like, the world, Earth, is a speck of dust in the universe. We're even less than that, you know? But, and that's what made me so proud to know that from our little corner of the world, here you had this businessman who made his mint in fashion, Tommy Hilfiger and Michael Kors, and made his mint and owns an F1 team. I thought that was so cool. I loved it. I absolutely adored it, you know? So that's kind of what happened from Formula One. Lance Stroll finishes sixth. 41-year-old Fernando Alonso finishes third. Sebastian Vettel runs away with the Bahrain Grand Prix. There's going to be no competition for Red Bull Racing in F1. Even Lewis Hamilton and Mercedes, like, they tried to pit early to get ahead of Fernando Alonso, put some hard tires on for the end of the race. That strategy didn't work. And what's happening, it's going to be fascinating to see what Team Canada, Team Montreal could do with Formula One this season. Now, look, we don't have a positive Montreal storyline to attach ourselves with when it comes to all things NBA, all things John Morant. But boy, oh boy, you want to crash course into how to ruin a career, how to ruin a legacy in the span of a month. Look no further than Memphis superstar John Morant, who's only 23 years old. And look, I mean, this superstar NBA player does not come from the streets. Has a good background, has a good family. His dad, T. Morant, goes to every single game, home and away. His dad goes to every game, you know? So we're not talking about one of those kind of storylines in the NBA. We've heard it a million times, you know, fighting the odds, defying all the odds, and ultimately turning what is a unbelievable sad story from childhood, single mom, one of 8 kids, whatever else, no money, food stamps, and then parlaying that into an NBA career. There's a lot of guys that have that storyline attached to them that fueled their motivation to become the best possible professional basketball player you could ever imagine. And it worked for a lot of these guys. I'm here to say John Morant is not part of that grouping, right? And as a direct result, I'm fascinated by what's happened to this guy's entourage. Is he surrounded by yes men? Because what's happened here, it's gone from the allegation of John Morant and his crew pointing lasers at members of the Indiana Pacers and their staff to outside the arena, again, laser pointing, but they weren't so sure if it was lasers. Was it the laser of a scope of a sight from a gun? And then we have the allegations of a 17-year-old who says John Morant repeatedly punched him in the face and pointed a gun at his face in a home game that went wrong. And then we have the next storyline of John Morant on Saturday of this past weekend going on Instagram Live brandishing a weapon. Was it a real gun or not? I think we could probably fairly safely assume that it was a real gun because now he's gone for a minimum of 2 games from the Memphis Grizzlies. John Morant issued a statement on the weekend apologizing, citing mental health. He's going to get the help he needs. I don't know if this is a case of mental health. It doesn't come across as a case of mental health. These are voluntary decisions that you made. There's nobody prompting this guy, pushing this guy, daring this guy to brandish a weapon, to be this quote-unquote tough guy, or he's trying to create this image of a quote-unquote tough guy and build up this tremendous amount of street cred, right, so that he can appease his boys and his crew and say, listen, I'm this big, tough guy. I'm never going to tolerate any level of disrespect, and if you disrespect me, I'm coming with weapons. Like, what the hell has happened here? And obviously, I hope that this young man, he's only 23 years old. Let's keep that in mind. At 23 years old, that he can make some corrections and make some serious pivots in his own personal life, and reestablish himself and find himself on the path that had this guy as a franchise player, someone that you were comfortable as a fan of Memphis or the general manager of that team, willing to go full max out, give this guy max dollars because you're going to build your team around this guy. Now it's a little bit buyer beware. And that's the danger, right? Like, you're going to surround yourself with people that maybe don't have your best intentions at the top of their minds or on their list of priorities. You got to make that adjustments. And that's where, good parenting comes into mind, like making sure that dad is dad and not your friend. There's a time when you grow older that you can be friends with your father, but at the end of it, he is always your father. She is always your mother. And these are the people that trust you and love you more than anybody else. And that's where it's a very, very dangerous proposition and a very sad, borderline disappointing proposition if this doesn't get corrected ASAP for John Morant. So we'll keep our eyes peeled to this story as it develops. Lots of messages coming in this morning. Thank you so much, everybody. Costa, Don, what is this? What are you saying to me? Dawn is the way up for the Montreal Canadiens tank. So here we go. The Canadiens' brutal week starts tomorrow with Carolina. JM, good morning from Punta Cana, Sean. Dude, I'm so jealous. I would love to be somewhere warm and hot, doing in the car with Star from the beach under a palapa tree with a cocktail in my hand. So good on you, brother. Enjoy Punta Cana. I think Gordon has had his hands tied at the deadline. However, draft day, I predict lots of action, a la Josh Anderson getting traded. Fantastic bit of commentary. As a matter of fact, we had Brian Wild on the morning show today at 8:05 for Habs Breakfast. Brian, every Monday at 8:05 with Connor McKenna and yours truly. It's up at tsn690.ca and podcasted on the iHeartRadio app if you missed it. Brian had a great hit with us, sharing his insight in his belief that, the numbers really declined. Like Josh Anderson's on 18 goals, right? Like, what if Josh Anderson gets to 24? Okay, let's say he gets to 25. He has a really incredibly strong finish to his season and pots 7 more goals between now and game number 82. I do believe there are teams in the National Hockey League that would look at a 28-year-old Josh Anderson with his contract that would get into a bidding war for his services. Josh Anderson, as much as I would like him to score more often and be more of a dominant player, we've seen the dominance in this guy's game before, and that in itself, I think, would prompt a lot of general managers in the league to overpay for Josh Anderson. I never believed that Josh Anderson was in play in the days, weeks leading up to March 3rd's trade deadline at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Josh Anderson, to me, always came across as the type of player that if you're going to move him, that type of complicated deal gets done in the summer months before draft day or on the draft itself, the first round, I should say. It just seemed too complicated unless the general manager was going to bowl Ken Hughes over with an offer he simply couldn't refuse. I never saw Josh Anderson getting dealt between now or the days leading up to March 3rd. Steph Howard, hello, sir. I'm happy how the deadline went. I think next year we will struggle with second-year jinxes. We're going to need vets to help them properly develop. Does that make sense? Steph Howard, that's a good bit of commentary, right? Because that was the one angle that if we're talking about, if you missed the beginning part of today's hit, I asked 2 questions. Were you disappointed with what the Montreal Canadiens did this weekend? And I'm basically asking a deadline, right? They lost to Anaheim Friday. They lost to Vegas on Sunday. Good. But deadline day, were you disappointed that the Canadiens didn't really do anything other than a minor league move and being a facilitator in the Nick Bonino trade? Other than that, nothing. There wasn't an offer that Ken Hughes said, okay, that's good enough, let's move, right? So Monahan's here, Joel Edmondson's here, Jonathan Drouin's here, Mike Hoffman, Christian Dvorak, and down the list we go of players we thought maybe would get moved, ultimately did not. I think Steph Howard brings up a good point in regards to the Canadiens still need NHL caliber players, right? The Canadiens aren't going to ice a Chicago Blackhawks lineup. Have you seen the Blackhawks roster and what their lineup looks like for the rest of their season? That's an embarrassment. Any NHL team's going to ice a roster like that. But the Canadiens aren't going to be that team, right? So maybe Steph brings up, the money point here, and that Joel Edmondson, knock on wood and all that superstitious stuff, that he stays healthy, shows that he's durable, because Joel Edmondson's hockey resume speaks for itself. You don't have to worry about – the only thing you have to worry about Joel Edmondson is his durability. Can he stay healthy? And if he can do that, Ken Hughes and Jeff Gordon have themselves something to work with here substantially, right? So other than that, I don't see Jonathan Drouin back next year. They're going to lose him for nothing, and that's okay. You lose him for nothing because he provides nothing, ultimately, even though he did score his first goal of the season on the weekend. On Friday, I should say. But he picked up another assist, right? So it's there. He's a little bit more engaged, a little bit more energized. Costa back in the mix. Trade Monahan, Armia, Edmondson, move forward with the young players. They're doing that. They're doing that. And look, I mean, you're not, Joel Edmondson, as I said already, if teams that are really fighting tooth and nail to wrap up their division, like we're talking about top 5 teams in hockey, you don't want their first round picks. Those are non-competitive picks. Very unlikely for those picks to ever turn into stars. We're talking about like a 5% chance, according to the math that's out there, right? Costa back. Congrats on making it over 1,000. Yes, I noticed that. I lost track a little bit of how many subscribers we had built up on our YouTube channel. But yeah, we reached over 1,000, which is awesome. So thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. And look, I mean, I have prizes to give away, but I've been waiting for the warmer weather to kind of hang around. For example, I have this here, Exactly Pickleball prize pack. My friends at Exactly, XZAKTLY. I have a pickleball prize pack to give away, and I will do that. My friends at Today Tomorrow Apparel have outfitted us with beautiful In the Car with Star t-shirts from all sizes, and I have those to give away, but I'm waiting for t-shirt weather, so people could wear them and enjoy them because it's a great garment for my friends at Today Tomorrow Apparel, right? So all that's coming up. I have the t-shirts are in my car right now. They're in the trunk in a box. But I'll give those away. No charge. Free. Done. Give away. So thank you for getting me over 1,000. Super fun. I love that stuff. J-Fed, what up? I like Anderson. Wouldn't trade him. Don't hate the lack of moves at the deadline. I like Anderson too. But the question I guess I have circulating in my mind is when the Montreal Canadiens are ready to make the leap to go from rebuild to now they're ready to contend and be super competitive. When is that? How old will Josh Anderson be? How effective will he be? He's 28 years old. That's the question I have. So, like Brian Wilde told us this morning on the show, if you look at Josh Anderson like you do a stock, is this as high as he's going to be now or in the summer? If hypothetically speaking, Anderson scores 7 more goals between now and the end of the year, he's going to have 25 goals. 25 goals, 35 to 40 points. Not a great point total, but 25 goals is very nice. Is that going to be the highest point of Josh Anderson's stock price if he gets to 25 goals? That was Brian Wilde's kind of scenario that he laid out for Connor and I this morning on the show. I think it's a great hypothetical. And I'm inclined to think that if he gets to the 25 goals, I think that might be his highest value you're going to see him at as a member of the Montreal Canadiens. And if that's the case, then you move him this summer. If the homework comes back and they tell you, then you got to move him. All right? So thank you for that comment. Keg, no. I am happy with the situation. I want them to fix the defense of the draft. We need a stud back there. You need a stud back there. Kegger, you got Caden Gooley, brother. You got Justin Barron back there, brother. You've got Jordan Harris, Lane Hudson, Logan Mailloux. Hey, come on now. You've got studs in the making, my friend. Ça s'en vient, mes amis. Costa, give me Domi over Anderson any day. Pick him up next year. He's more consistent. That's a pass for me, Bob. I am not in the Max Domi camp. I'd rather have Josh Anderson over Max Domi all day, every day. That's between you and I. But I'll tell you this. You know who I love having in my corner every single day, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year? That's my friends at Axon and axongroup.com, a trusted provider in logistics, in freight forwarding, domestically or cross-border. I want you to think of one outfit and one outfit only when it comes to getting your cargo from point A to point B. And point B could be anywhere in the world, anywhere in this country. That's why I've partnered with Axon. 888-99-AXON. Be secure knowing that they have the knowledge and the assets to get your precious freight from point A to point B. And again, point B is anywhere in the world, anywhere in our country. Cross-border, domestically, it doesn't matter. Axon is a leader in the transportation and logistical space. It's why you see their containers. That's right. They're in the container business, my friends. They are a dominant player. And that's why I partnered with the best in the industry to make sure you are in trusted hands. We are in trusted hands together. Think of no one other than Axon, axongroup.com for more information. Better yet, call them. 888-99-AXON, AXSUN, for more information and get all the information on their rates, etc. A trusted name, whether you're staying in Canada, going from point A to point B, or going from Montreal to Zimbabwe, or anywhere in between. axongroup.com. More information always available just at the tip of your fingers. 888-99-AXON, proud sponsors of In the Car with Star, which promises to be a very competitive week for the Montreal Canadiens. It starts tomorrow against Carolina. They've got a date with the Rangers, a date with the Devils. That's this week. On Monday, a week from today, it's a visit from the defending Stanley Cup champion, Colorado Avalanche, on Monday at the Bell Center. And that, my friend, Monday is a 7:30 puck drop, and that's it. No more 7:30 starts. No more California out of the Eastern time zone starts. This is it. 5 more weeks to go between now and the end of the regular season. So all that to be said, and I think we've had some fun here. We've talked about the Canadiens. We talked about their week. We talked about John Morant. We talked about Formula One. Kurt Kitayama wins Bay Hill in what was a fantastic weekend for golf on the PGA Tour. But all this to say, ultimately, I'm not disappointed that the Montreal Canadiens didn't make any bold moves. I thought maybe a team would be interested in Jonathan Drouin, but I'm not surprised that they weren't. Same thing, it's about trust. You can't trust Sean Monahan and Joel Edmondson to be durable, to be healthy for a team that wants to make moves. You only have so many roster spots, so many contracts that you can have on your team. The risk-reward ratio doesn't make a lot of sense for a lot of general managers, and I think ultimately that's why the Montreal Canadiens were so quiet on Friday's trade deadline. Thanks for watching. Don't forget, you can support me as always by supporting my sponsors like K-Stop Gas Bar and Depanneur, Highway 138 in beautiful Ganawage. It's right over the Mercier Bridge. Premium fuel at discount prices 24 hours a day. Their Depanneur isn't open 24 hours a day, but they do have fresh, hot, and cold prepared meals. They got salad bowls, smoothie bowls, you name it. You got homemade BLT sandwiches with garden-grown vegetables. I love K-Stop Gas Bar and Depanneur. They've been a sponsor of mine since day one. And loyalty matters. Loyalty matters to me. And that's why I encourage you to support my sponsors by supporting me. K-Stop Gas Bar and Depanneur, Highway 138 in Ganawage. Premium fuel at discount prices, open 24 hours a day. And on a crappy day like Saturday, you don't even have to get out of your car. They've got someone there that will fuel you up to the precise amount that you request at K-Stop Gas Bar, Highway 138 in Ganawage. Thanks for watching and listening. You can always like and subscribe and leave a comment. I'll get back to you. And that's it. Thanks for getting me over to 1,000 subs on YouTube. We did it, you guys. Now we can coast all the way to financial freedom together. Don't forget, we'll be back later this week. Canadiens in action tomorrow against Carolina. And then they've got the Rangers and Devils this week.